You can do it, dude.
I got this.
You got this.
All right.
You got this.
All right. Hey. Welcome to the next... Okay.
Take 75.
Take 75. I'm forgetting how to speak. Here we go. Jeez. Hey. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of AdventureCast, the Adventure Quest Worlds podcast that revolves around Adventure Quest Worlds and everything AE. Today is a very, very special episode, as I'm doing my first interview. So this episode might be a little weird because I've never done an interview before. So I apologize for that. Cut me some slack, please. But today, I am very honored to be interviewing a former artist for Adventure Quest Worlds, Tana Pyre. Tana, yes. What is it?
I said aloha.
Aloha. What's up? How you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I just want to make sure before we continue, is it Tana or Tana?
It's Tana.
Tana Pyre. Okay. Just want to get that out of the way so I don't say it wrong. But how have you been?
I've been good. Like, honestly, for first time in a long time. Been really good.
That's excellent to hear. I'm very happy to hear that.
This year's been hard for us both, I'm sure, because of COVID and everything. But
hey, it is what it is. We're getting through it. We're doing it. We're here doing an interview, so that's awesome.
Yeah,
something new for both of us. Alrighty, so for those of you who don't know, like I said, Tana was a former AE artist for Adventure Quest Worlds, and you might know some of the sets that are in game by Tana. And I got to see some of them in game actually, and they are fantastic. So I can't wait to dive into these questions and kind of pick your brain a little bit. Why don't you start off by telling everyone kind of who you are, even though I sort of did, but you can go more in depth to it because you obviously know more than I do. But tell everyone who you are and what you've done and what you are known for.
I am Tana Pyre. Tana Pyre, whatever you want to call me. Just not the dinner. I'm obviously a player of AQ Worlds and former artist, volunteer artist back when they were still doing it that way. And I've been playing for eons. I mean, literally since the game was an alpha. And obviously I'm known for art.
Yes. No.
It slipped my mind.
It happens.
But it's been a long time. So, I mean, I still do a little art here and there, just not officially.
Gotcha.
But, I was working for like a year there.
That's really cool. So you were a volunteer artist. Now, to me, I'm a layman to this kind of stuff when it comes to art in the community, and doing it for the game. How about we say, like, for people out there that are artists and they would like to one day maybe do art for the game, like, what was the process? How did they like reach out to you, or did you have to apply?
Yeah, I did not honestly have to apply. So it's a little bit of a long story, but I'll try and break it down as fast as I can.
That's fine. That's fine.
For time. So for a long time, I was using Photoshop and sort of editing like art that was posted from some of the more mainline artists that are working on the game. And just at first I started with just saying, hey, this might look better if it looks like this. Maybe edit this because this looks a little off. It was kind of critiquey.
Right.
And I started gaining followers like that because for the most part, nobody knew I was only using Photoshop. They thought I was actually using Flash to create all this stuff.
Oh,
so
wow.
I had to keep explaining, oh, no, I have no idea how to use Flash. I'm just using Photoshop to do everything. Because I went to school for Photoshop for 3 years. So
that's cool.
I have a huge art background, so I mean I'll get into that when the time comes, but just basically so like I said, I started just doing Photoshop, and I was working on a Mac at the time using Photoshop CS, which is one of the older versions of Photoshop.
Right.
And this is like back in 2000. Well, I was doing it for about 3 years before they reached out to me, but basically just doing little art edits and stuff like that, building up a little following, and My Twitter presence was pretty big at the time, but once I started doing some art contests, I don't know. I guess I started getting noticed by some of the other artists in the game that were working. Or sorry,
No
I
problem.
should start over, but I don't want to.
You're good. You're good.
Basically, like there was artists like at the time he was going by Bidoof. Now he goes by Bido or Bido.
Right. Right.
And then there was some other artists I started kind of talking to and interacting with them. And at first it started, oh man, your stuff's really good, and yada yada. And then I think the first time my stuff really got noticed was when there was an art contest for Beline was doing at the time. It had to do with designing a naval. So like we got to design our own navels and then submit them. And mine didn't get picked or whatever, but a lot of people in the community were just very enamored with it, and give me a lot of feedback on that. And when it didn't win, they were very disappointed, but that's okay.
Right.
It's all learning experience and stuff.
Oh,
so.
Definitely. They were probably like, man, I really wanted to see that in game.
Yeah, and I mean, I understand why it wasn't chosen, because I mean, there was a lot that was kind of wrong with it in terms of like proper. The way they choose what goes in game, it has to be done a specific way, and they have their own particular way of requirements of in terms of art, how it has to look, if it's going to be laggy or not, things like that. So
Gotcha.
And then I guess the second contest where my stuff really got noticed, they did a contest for AQ Dragons,
Right.
and my submission won. It tied for second with a few other people, and that was what really got my foot in the door. I got reached out to by I believe it was Mehmet at first,
Mm-hmm.
and then because me and Mehmet sort of started interacting there for a little while, because when she actually was involved on Twitter, it was a lot of good positive feedback between her and I, and we just kind of hit it off and started becoming friends. And she would give me a lot of pointers here and there on how to kind of improve stuff, and I think she was the one that really got me motivated into wanting to try and get into Flash. And then Alina had reached out to me, and she was interested in wanting to basically bring me aboard and give me a trial run to see how I do.
Wow.
And before I got to really delve into Flash, Mehmet had to work with me for a little while and give me basically a full-on crash course, because, like I said, for the most part, I had a huge art background,
Mm-hmm.
and I've done like some comic book illustration. I've done some game design stuff. I've done a lot of conceptual art, things like that. And then again, I did have a huge background like in college and things like that. So they wanted to kind of utilize my experience, and because they liked what I had to bring to the table, and because at the time I had a decent Twitter following.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of fans were just like, get this guy in there, blah, 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 look at his stuff, it's amazing, blah, blah, blah.
That's so cool, yeah.
At the time, I didn't really, I was kind of burned out with the art, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't even contemplating trying to do art for AA at the time. So I was talking to Mehmet, and I was like, man, I don't even know. I don't think my art's all that good. I'm kind of not making any money. It's hard and struggling. And so she's like, well, just talk to Alina and give it a shot,
Yeah.
see how it goes. So I was like, all right, well, if you guys like my art, I'll see what I can do, because and then it went from there. So I got my little trial run. Alina talked to me, signed a bunch of the things you're supposed to sign,
Right.
in our NDAs and things like that. And then I just got to starting to training. I didn't get to make a set right then, right there. I had to learn how to use Flash, and man, it was grueling for me. The transition from Photoshop to Flash, when I'm used to using a mouse and I'm used to,
Yes.
working on Photoshop for years and years, and just it was totally alien for me.
I can imagine, yeah.
So when these people, they're trying to bust out sets in like 2 seconds, I'm like, bro, you gotta slow your roll. You gotta go back. You gotta learn.
You gotta slow
the basics
down.
when you're doing art. You really gotta take your time and be patient and just literally design stuff. It takes a while, like, to really pick up on it. And some people are super quick. They already know what they want to do.
Right.
They're like, but me, I'm just like, I want to translate my illustration style and bring it into, Flash. How do I do that? How far can I push Flash? What can Flash really do? What's its limitations? And I've always been told, oh, Flash is the most limiting art program out there. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I've been able to pretty much everything I've done in Photoshop, I've been able to duplicate in Flash. Sure, it's harder and trickier,
right?
But it's fun if you can utilize it the way it's supposed to be utilized.
Yeah, definitely. I can imagine that switching over to like a whole new program, because I've always noticed that like Adobe programs are really they're huge. They're really good programs. You can do a lot, but like when you open it up for the first time, it's like looking at a spaceship. It's you're like, whoa, hold on a second. Like, I really need to take a second to learn this.
Yeah. And I mean, I heard you talking the other day about GIMP, and I'm just like, yeah, I know a lot of people are using GIMP, but I never used GIMP. I mean, I was using Flash right out of college, man. Like, I paid for it and everything. So like, I had the student edition. I don't know, and it was pretty intense because I was using way back when I was learning Flash. It was like 2004, and back then Flash was owned by Macromedia,
right?
And it was before Adobe swooped in and took it. But I was learning the most ancient version of Flash, so like, I mean, I was doing 2D animation and animating the old school ways, where you're animating on paper and then scanning it in and doing it that way. And
right.
So I'm very old school when it comes to my art.
Well, that's cool though. I feel like there's a lot of like old school art. There's a lot of personality in those art pieces, like when they're done really old, like the old fashioned way, I should say. I think it almost is the same to me as like like digital photos versus like film photos, because like film photos you have to really plan out your shot and everything and take the photo and you can hold it, and there's just so much human personality in that photo. So like old art done an old fashioned way in like an ancient way is I don't know, you can relate and resonate with it more, I think.
Yeah, I mean, doing like I said, when Mimit was giving me the crash course in Flash, it was in the middle of, there was a bunch of things going on, so she didn't have the amount of time she really wanted to give me, because I mean, I believe she was number 2 helping Alina even then, and so I was working with Mimit, Alina, and Reens. So I didn't get to interact with Reens that much unless I submitted something and she needed me to correct some things. I didn't interact with Alina as much as I would have liked, but I understand because she runs the company. She runs AQW.
Right.
So in terms of time, busy, I just didn't have a lot of time, so a lot of it I had to do on my own. It was very, very, very difficult, but a lot of it was I would learn by kind of researching a lot of images and things like that on Google prior. So like if I had to design something that had clothing or something on it, well, a lot of people struggle with clothing in Flash, so I tend to look up real world photos and study the shading and how it's designed and how it looks.
Right.
And then Mimit would try to teach me how to translate it so that it looks more complex than what it really is. So like there's a lot of trickery and things like that. Because at first when I was designing stuff, I mean, there was hundreds of thousands of lines in my work, and I had to go through and I had to delete all of them.
Oh, jeez.
I was like I said, I'm used to drawing and scanning my work in and then going from there. So when I was in Flash, I mean, I was doing everything very complicated. I didn't have any experience at all doing tablet work or anything, so everything I did was with a mouse. It took.
Jeez.
I was poor Alina. She was telling me, "Hey, don't burn yourself out," because I would take days, and when I say days, I'm talking literally. I would not sleep or eat or anything until my work was done. So
Right.
like we're talking, 16 plus hours of just doing art in Flash nonstop. Even my wife was concerned. So that's just how I get. I get very obsessive and immersive in my work. So
Oh, well, and that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing. Like, I obviously, like, to an extent, like, 16-hour days.
Sure.
Like, you gotta, but
Sure.
I understand that.
And this is all like volunteer work, man. I'm not getting paid for this.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's also like
I just love art.
you have of course you love art, and I always think that if people want to do something creatively, and in this case art, if people want to do that, like, yeah, it's really great to get compensated for your work, and you should, and rightfully
Sure.
so. But you have just as much fun, and you're just as dedicated to it if you're not
Yep.
getting paid, because you love it. It's your passion.
Sure.
It's your
Exactly.
thing, and
And ultimately, my goal was to get my work in there. And
Right.
I was just like, if I love it, and the players see how much I love my work, and they know I'm investing all my heart and soul into it, they're gonna want to buy my stuff.
Yeah,
They're
and
gonna
it'll
wanna
shine
wear it.
through. Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
And it'll show through your work. That's really cool. I was gonna ask, but you sort of answered it. But about
That's fine.
about you did all, like, with a mouse. I can't imagine that is hard. Like, I've tried
Even
to
now.
Really.
Even now, yeah. Years later, still using a mouse.
Man, that is, because I mean, obviously I'm no no Photoshop wizard. I just know how to make basic little thumbnails and do basic things. But like, for like you example, you obviously know the program probably inside and out by now. And I
Just
always
about.
just trying to, I know there's different ways to make lines and stuff in Photoshop, but I've tried just to, like, I'm going to try to draw something with like a pen tool, and I'm like, I can't do this without a tablet. Like, there's no way.
The pen tool in Photoshop is well, me and the pen tool, we've had to have a few battles.
Have you?
I don't like the pen tool either. But
Gotcha.
the pen tool in Flash, that's a whole different ballgame.
Really? I
love
bet.
the pen tool in Flash. Well, it's Animate now, but
You say you're still using a mouse. Have you ever had the opportunity to work with, like, on a tablet?
sure. I mean, tablets are a little easier to use in Photoshop. Still not that easy to use in Flash.
Wow.
Because Flash, everything that you draw in Flash, it doesn't even matter if it's one single line. It's done as a vector, so
Okay.
it's not as forgiving. Like, if you draw a line and you mess up, you need to go back and kind of delete that. But because there's no way to really, I mean, you could try and reshape it, but if you're drawing it with the pen or pencil tool or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
it's a little messy. So I use the line tool with everything I do in Flash.
Okay, so explain for me, and I'm sure people listening that don't know. Now, I've heard the term, like, vector for an image, but I don't really know exactly what that means. So if you could elaborate on that a little bit.
All right. So vector images, at least for me, the way they are just means that you can resize it any size you want, and it never gets pixelated. It basically keeps it sharp, clean look,
Okay.
no matter what you do. And
That's
when
awesome.
you're exporting your work from Flash into Photoshop, it usually does so without importing the background with it.
Mm-hmm.
So when you save things as a vector, you will usually save it with no background at all. So
it's like a transparent
for me,
background?
yes. So
Gotcha.
for me, I don't save my work as GIF files, but I know a lot of people that do. I save all my stuff as PNG files because it keeps the integrity, it keeps the clarity. I mean, the file's bigger and has a little more memory to it.
Sure.
But in my experience, when I do commission work or something, I always submit everything as PNG files because I want people to get the best bang for their buck.
Oh, of course.
That way when the ticket to go get printed, there is no lines missing. The colors are all there.
Right.
Stuff like that.
That's it. That's super interesting. This is so interesting to hear. I'm learning so much, and I'm sure everyone listening.
I mean, there's much more complexity in terms of the terminology to it, but I just a layman guy, man. I just like, okay, so it does this, I'm gonna do that. And
so here's another question I just came up with, which is interesting to me. So like when you make let's just say you make an art piece for AQW and in Flash, or now like when you add little effects to it, like particles somewhere, or it moves in some way. Like I'm not talking like when the character moves, I'm just saying when you're standstill, the actual armor might have like a little lightning animation or something. Would you do that? Or like would someone else do that? Like did you know how to animate like that?
So real talk. When I was trained, I was specifically told at the time, do not use effects, filters, gradients, or animations.
Okay.
Because at the time, which I'm sure you probably have encountered, but there was a tremendous amount of lag. The servers were not the greatest.
Right.
And they were in the middle of upgrading their servers.
Gotcha.
I don't know if you've heard the stories of the great reset or whatever, that they were trying to update everything. And
yeah.
But anyway, so they were in the middle of doing all of that, and so they would Alina would basically just say, look, this is all we need. Don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. And I was like, okay. And and don't make color customizable stuff as well, because that also compounds and adds to the lag. So
gotcha.
See, these are all things I never knew. Yeah. I never knew any of this.
Yeah. So me either.
She was just like, make sure there's not a lot of lines in your work. Make sure you don't use too many colors. Try and keep things a little simplified. So like, because that's the AQW style.
Yeah.
So I just assumed, well, if Dage is doing this, I assumed I would do the same thing. But they said, no.
Right.
It's hard for us to trust you. It's very, very difficult. So, because otherwise we'll have to turn it into some kind of paying set or something. Because I mean, there's a whole. I'll get into it if you want, but
sure, yeah,
there's
I'm
a whole
all ears.
rhyme or reason as to why some sets have to look less complicated than others. So, like for your paying sets, those are the ones you can go as crazy you want. You can add all the effects, the CC stuff, and all of that. And those are usually the ones they'll do an LQS or something like that for, because I mean, ultimately, as I stated, they want you to keep things within the style. And if you go a little nuts, they'll still take, they'll still accept the art, but they do so sort of begrudgingly, unless it's planned in advance. Okay, I want this. It has to be looking like this. Alina's very particular, so like if she gives you instructions, this is how it has to be done.
Right.
And Reigns is also the same way, because if most people don't know, Reigns' whole job is to edit the art, prepare the art, and when it goes in, she tests every little thing to make sure it's up to snuff, to make sure it works properly, make sure there's not a lot of lag. If there's a lot of lag or something's not working right, she'll send it back to you and be like, look, you got to fix this, and fix this, and fix this, and fix this. So I mean, it's a huge process, and it can get grueling if you're not prepared for it,
Right, yeah, I can imagine.
For me, I'll be honest with you, it was really hard, but I did enjoy it. I love to learn. I work very good under pressure. Even if I hate pressure, I work really, really good under it. So
right.
I feel like I'm getting way off tangent here.
No, you can talk about whatever you want. The floor is yours.
So like I said, there's a whole process, and usually it starts with, okay, we're just looking for this, and then once you do that and then you submit it, then they look at it and they're like, all right, so that looks good, but we also want this, this, and that. Yes. So like I'm like, okay, they'll send it back to me, and then I got to make those modifications. So I it's a back and forth, a lot of back and forth, a lot of communication.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully I was working with who I call the big three, the Holy Trinity, which is, like I said, Alina, Reigns, Mehmet, all three of them. So
Right.
they gave me tremendous amounts of feedback, lots of praise here and there to make sure that I was comfortable, because there was a lot of times I wasn't sure, I was out of my element, man, with the Flash. So there was a lot of times I was I'd get a little frustrated or something.
Oh, sure.
And sometimes Alina would get, hey, what's your number? I'll call you. She'll talk to me and assure me, hey, man, look, we love your stuff. Everything's good. Just hang in there. Everything will be fine. And, blah, blah, blah. So, like I said, for me, because, so to kind of get into it, first off, I suffer from like PTSD. Right?
Okay.
I'm also on the spectrum, and there's little things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
my when I deal with instruction and stuff like that, I put a lot of pressure on myself to make sure everything is perfect,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely perfect. So like insane amounts of pressure, and this is an artist thing. I think all artists do this.
Okay.
But like, I put a lot of pressure on myself to make sure everything's tremendously perfect. And every time somebody would submit back, they'd look at something and then resubmit it back to me. I'm like, oh man, I'm just this huge failure. Everything's wrong. But then it broke it down in one way. She broke it down in one simple way. She said, look, what you need to keep in mind is that it's okay to suck. What that means is, all your work's not going to be perfect all the time, and it's okay to make mistakes, especially in Flash, because it's so easy to go back and fix when it's in Flash. Now, if it were in Photoshop, for me, it'd be much more difficult because you're working in layers, and if you mess up something, you have to go back and you have to redo literally the entire thing all over again.
That's good though. That she's right. Like it's fine. Like it's gonna happen, and you're as
you
like
don't learn anything unless you mess up,
Right. You'll never learn. You have to mess up to learn. It sounds very counterproductive, but it's true. You got to mess up to learn. And you'll always be like your own worst enemy too. Like you'll do something, you'll make something that looks really good. Like if someone were to see it, they'd be like, wow, that is impressive. That's really, really good. But in your head, you're like, no, see, like I got to do this. Like it's not perfect.
Yeah.
So,
and I'd always get stuck in that trap. So when it came to meeting deadlines, I'd meet the deadlines, but just by a hair. And I'm like, oh man, I turned that in. I forgot to make this to go with it.
You're right.
And,
yeah. No, I understand.
So like I'll submit an armor, and I'm like, oh man, I forgot to make this weapon.
Oh no.
And so like, and they're like, oh no, it's fine. Just it's fine as it is. Let's leave it alone. It's good. And just know that for next time. So what I've learned to do is, instead of being such a massive perfectionist, I would just go ahead and make everything I gotta make, and then go back and correct things if that needed to be corrected. That way I'd still have time to make things.
Right.
Because like my first set I ever made for the game, I don't know if this goes into some other questions, but my first set I ever made for the game was the Dream Eater, and oh my god, that thing had so many problems.
Did it?
Yeah, like when I didn't have time to make the female armor color custom. They're supposed to have color customizable skin. All armors are supposed to have CC skin.
Okay.
So I didn't know how to do the coding. I didn't know where to look for the code, so I was running out of time. So I was just like, all right, well, just gonna submit it as it is then. The male version had CC skin because after I had a struggle with the female armor so much, I was finally able to get the coding for the male, but I was running low on time, so the male version of the armor had CC skin. So, and then many years later, Alina went back and fixed the CC skin, so now the female is CC.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, like I messed up though. Like I added a back skirt when I didn't need to, so now like there's this janky back skin or back skirt portion that's still there to this day. If you look at it, it's still there.
You look back at it, you're like, oh man.
Every time I see it, and I'm just like reminded, why did I put that there?
You're like, why?
So But yeah, man, I went nuts on that one. And it's done in a style that none of my armors are done in, and that's the comic book illustration style.
Right.
I guess you can kind of relate it to how Diaz is what he was known as, but Ozzy also uses a particular style when he draws all his AQW stuff as well. Very cartoony looking. So that's what my style I used on the Dream Eater, and that was my first armor, so I just went nuts with it.
That's cool.
And they were telling me, no, just, it's fine. You don't have to do all this. This is your first armor. It's okay. It may not be the best, but just use it as your launching to help build your confidence, self-esteem, and all that. Because I always have battles with the confidence, self-esteem, kind of my heart. So
right.
I'm my own worst critic.
Right. I'm the same way. I just get into my own head and I do that a lot with other things, obviously. But yeah, that is super, super interesting. I'm learning so much. This is more than like, I was like, I don't know. Like I had a set of questions that I wanted to ask you, and you're just giving me like more and more, which is a good thing.
Yeah, it's like because I read all the questions prior, so I was like, okay, I can answer all those. But I've never had I'm a chaotic person in terms of, I'm not chaos, but like very scatterbrained. So like you open a floodgate and everything is just gonna come out.
It's perfect though. It's interesting. I like it. It's good, and I'm sure the people listening to are learning a lot as well, because this is stuff that I've wondered for as long as I've been playing AQW, and now I get it now. Like I see it.
Mimit did teach, like what she was able to show me and teach me, dude. She like helped me a lot. So, and she was there almost 100% of the time. Like, because I would hit her up. At the time she was on Skype, so I'd always hit her up and be like, "Hey, I'm struggling," or and she'd always help. And like even if she wasn't able to kind of share screens with me and show me all the time, she was able to kind of help keep me grounded and let me know, hey man, it's okay to suck. If you're stuck, if you're not happy with stuff and you think it sucks and it's not working out, then just kind of just keep at it, and just keep in mind that it doesn't need to be this way or that way, because the way you interpret something may not be the way somebody else interprets it.
That's true.
Just submit your work, have fun with it, have fun. That's ultimately what art is about, having fun.
Of course.
You don't need to be beating yourself up to make the perfect line. Just do it. Just make it happen, and it'll, everything will work out.
Right. So. Yeah. I agree that. Excuse me. I agree that making art and whatever art form that is, in this case, AQW armor, just art in general. But it's always you should have fun, because once you're not having fun, then it's a chore and it's not fun anymore. Like, you're supposed to have fun. That's the first thing you should always make sure you're doing is, am I having fun? If the answer is yes, keep going. Like, you're having fun. And some people, get mad when people have too much fun making art, and then they're like, oh, you can't make that art. That's whatever. And that's a whole different story. Yeah. Always have fun, number one. And when they were saying that, like, it's okay to suck and stuff, and that happens. You can never, it's impossible just to be perfect at every single thing you do the first time.
True.
That goes back to, you have to fail to succeed.
Yeah.
And that when, they're like, just submit it and, just keep going and keep making art, and you'll get better. You'll discover your everything about it. And it's just cool to be able to go back and look back, like, okay, well, here's my first armor that I made that was released, and here is, the most current one that I made, and you can see like a timeline through the style and how much better it increases.
For sure. The hard thing for me as well was, I would also submit, screenshots or something of my progress on my Twitter to get feedback, from the other artists or players and stuff. And a lot of that pressure I put on myself was because some of the feedback wasn't always the greatest. You know how people can be.
Right.
And I took it way too personal at the time, because I wasn't emotionally in a spot where I should have been first place.
Gotcha.
When I look back on my experience now, I should have just not really cared. I should have just kind of posted what I wanted, left it alone, and then went back to my art, not paying attention to anything.
Right. Yeah.
But I was always very connected to the community, and I was always a player first and an artist second.
Mm-hmm.
I should have flipped it and been an artist first and a player second.
Right.
But I just, it's trial and error, man. If I had a chance to go back and redo things, I would totally handle it different.
Definitely. Was there anything else that you wanted to say, or did you want to move on to the next question?
I don't even know what question I'm on anymore.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking at you.
The second question.
You answered a lot of them, like in that whole thing, which is good. But I just want to let's see. We talked about your history, AQW history, and how long you've been playing. So okay, how did you find out about AQW, or I should say Artix Entertainment? Was AQW your first
No
game?
No, definitely was not my first game.
Okay.
So back in the day, MySpace was around, and in the MySpace heydays, Artix Entertainment used to post ads there for them to help promote them on like the login page. You would sometimes see ads on the in the background.
Yeah.
So like I saw an ad for, I think it was Dragon Fable.
Gotcha.
And this is back when Dragon Fable first came out, and Dragon Fable was basically my gateway into Artix Entertainment, into their games. So I originally started with Dragon Fable, and then I got into AQ Classic.
Mm-hmm.
I liked the complexity of the mechanics of how AQ Classic worked at the time, but back then the art was, even they'll tell you, it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
So I wasn't able to get into it. It was kind of one of those very, very, very old kind of games, and the art was not the best.
Right.
So I stuck to Dragon Fable, and then through Dragon Fable, which, oh man, I love that game. Then I went to like MechQuest, because Dragon Fable came out before MechQuest.
Right.
And then once I discovered MechQuest, I was like, oh man, this has everything I could ever want. Mechs, sci-fi, I mean, all the good stuff. So I stuck to MechQuest and didn't play Dragon Fable as much. And then after MechQuest came, the Warp Force or something. That game was not that great. That game didn't last that long. It just felt like MechQuest 2.0.
Gotcha.
But it had a lot of elements of AQ Classic, and so then there was an announcement that they were going to make a game called Adventure Quest Worlds.
Right. And
the first screenshot they showed of that just blew my mind. It was a very stylized sort of, like kind of what it is, not what it is now, but it was done in such a way. The style I had recognized because Milton at the time, he was on board, and he was doing little advertisements and stuff for AQ. He did a little ad or something for Dragon Fable, Artix versus the Undead, and it was the first thing I had ever seen from Milton, and I was like, "Who's this Milton dude?" This animator.
Yeah.
And man, you see that, and it just blew me away. It was like this little mini movie, and I'm like, man, I love this style. What is this? I want more of this.
This is so cool.
And yeah, it was so neat. And then I saw another commercial he did for MechQuest, which is sort of another little animated sort of movie type of little mini movie thing. Yeah. And I was like, man, I got to see more of this. What is this? And like I said, the moment they announced AQ Worlds, it had that art on there, and I'm like, oh, I'm all in this. These other games, I'm in this. Whatever this is, I want this.
Yeah.
Inject it in my veins right now. I want this.
I want it now.
So, and then as I was, getting into that game, and it wasn't in alpha yet. They were just kind of showing art for it before, and preparing people. Hey, we're going to do an alpha. As long as you're a member of such and such games, and it can be verified, then you can get to, you might be able to get in for alpha. And oh man, it was a lot of bugs. There wasn't a lot you could do, but man, alpha was fun. And I think beta was where I had most of my memories, but alpha was amazing because there was a lot of bugs. And when you first logged on, you would jump into Yolgar. There was no other maps, just Yolgar.
Really?
Yeah, and it was so simple. Just they were kind of trying to test out interface and little simple things.
Yeah.
So like you would just jump into Yolgar, and it was one single room. You couldn't go upstairs yet or anything. It was just one room, and that was the first alpha test.
Wow.
And it was very simple armor. I think you could equip different hairstyles or something, but yeah, at first it was just very, very super basic, and you could just type, and they were trying to test the chat interface. It was very, 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 very basic. I think there was like two buttons
Yeah.
you could click, and that was it.
Wow.
And the first max cap where they tested the first battle stuff was you could get to like level 10 and battle. I think the first boss ever in the game was the did you ever get to do the invasion story arc where you meet Sepultura and Altion and you have to choose good or evil or whatever?
Yeah.
Anyway, so there's this one little dude you gotta fight. It's like this. It's called the giant skeleton giant or something, undead giant or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
He's standing outside the castle door to get into Swordhaven. Anyway, that was the first boss. That undead giant guy.
Oh wow.
So yeah, and he wasn't like hard, but I mean to know that was the first boss.
That's really cool.
To go from him. And I think Red Dragon was the first real boss we got to fight, and he was hard as hell to kill at the time.
Getting an AQW history lesson here. I love it.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
There was a lot of fun stuff with Alpha, dude.
Yeah. Well, that's good that it was able to give you like all these just cool memories.
Yeah. I fell in love with the art style. Like I said, the moment I got to, watch those Milton videos, and then they had a little mini game. Way back then, they had a little interface where you could access little mini games, and one of them was Deddy.
Oh, really?
So I got my introduction to Deddy because you got to play a little Deddy mini game.
Yeah.
And Milton animated that whole thing apparently. So I was just like, I want more of this. This is what games are about. This is so fun. So I just whatever Milton was involved with, I wanted to follow. So I immediately went to AQW once I saw the art for that getting made, and I just went from there. And that was when I was like determined. I'm like, I want to do some art for this game someday. I don't care how, but I want to do some art for this game. I believe in this. And
I was gonna ask, like, when you started playing, did you ever think or like fantasize like I want to make art for this game, did you ever think that it would happen?
No. I mean, originally my interest started way back when I was playing Dragonfell. I was like, man, this is some cool art. I like this kind of anime style. I mean, it's side scrolling, it's sort of basic, but like, man, this is so easy. I could do this. But when the AQW came out, I was like, oh, this is a 3/4 view. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. This is what I want to do. This is it right here. So, but I never really was very shy. I didn't really not interact with the community. This is back when the staff were actually the core staff back then was Ardix, Cicero, Warlick, and Alina, and this is back when they would actually go in the game and interact with the community. Now they just can't. Now it's too much.
Yeah,
they're too big now.
Yeah, they're too big and they got a lot on their plate.
Exactly. So it was interesting back then. Like, I don't know, it's a different vibe now. But
right. I wish I had discovered it at that time. Because I discovered it in 2010, like September of 2010.
2010 is still a damn good year.
Yeah,
right after
I agree. 2010, it was a good year. I agree with that. But man, I just like wish I could have experienced it back then. But I'm still happy I experienced it when I did, for sure, because I had a lot of good memories.
Yeah. I mean, the core team was still involved in 2010, so
that's true.
You still got to have a lot of good times.
Yeah, there were a lot of good times. You also answered this, I believe, about how long you have been an artist.
Oh, so I've been doing art since I could crawl. It all started with cave drawings. No, drawing and scribbling on the walls, as a child would do. And
Right.
then I got into, as a little kid, you get the coloring books and you're like, I want to do that. So you would trace, you would trace the lines with the crayons and sort of make them your own. But like, I don't know, crayons, man. That's where I first started doodling. But when I first started getting real good, I'd say I was probably around 10, 11, 12. That's when I started real noticing that I had something, and
Right.
and I just loved it and enjoyed it. And the adults that would see my stuff would like, they wanted to really encourage me to pursue this thing, because back then, I mean, I'm 44, so back in then, it was like the 80s, 90s. Art was not taken remotely seriously as a career choice.
Okay.
They were just like, I mean, this looks really good, but you're not gonna, make any money doing this. But like, I had an art teacher back then, and I used to like see how he would do art for books and things like that. And he would always encourage me. He's like, don't let anyone tell you you're not gonna make money doing this. Don't let anyone discourage you from what you want to do and follow your dreams and stuff like that. So
Of course.
I just kept at it. I mean, it also, you can't discourage children. Like, they're very impressionable. So if you're trying to tell a kid, oh yeah, you're not gonna make any money doing this, it's gonna destroy them, and then I'm never gonna do it again.
Well, yeah, that, and of course, like, if the kid is really good at art for being how old kid is, what people are telling them, oh wow, your art's like really good, you should keep doing this, like encouraging them, and then they turn their back to another person. The person's like, no, you won't make any money doing this. They're like, well, what do you mean? This person said I will. What do I do? Like, they're obviously good, so they should always encourage it.
I met many artists. Apologies.
No, you're fine.
I met many artists along the way that I would show my work to, and they would be pretty discouraging. And I think it was because, now that I look back, it was more like they were intimidated.
Right.
They didn't want the competition, so they would tear you down.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned this a lot. It happens even today, like because it's such a competitive field. That be careful who you show your art to. Like, just, especially in the comic book world, just be careful, because you'll be tore down a lot.
Oh wow.
And I just say, don't let that stuff discourage you. Like, if that's what you want to do, just do it, man. You don't need nobody's approval. Just do it. And
just do it.
Your work will speak for itself. Like, you don't need to market your work. Your work will market for you. So,
right.
I don't know if that came out right.
No, it came out perfect. I totally understand what you're saying.
And part of my issue as an artist even now is that I struggle with marketing myself. Like, I admit it. Like, people ask me all the time, hey, you want to do some commissions? I'm like, I don't have prices. I have no idea how to do all that. I let somebody else handle my business end, and I handle the art end.
Right. And some people need that. I struggle with the same thing. Like, I don't obviously make art like draw or anything like that, but I do like photography as a hobby, and I sometimes
that's art, dude.
I get gigs and I do it on the side. But when people ask me to do shoots and they're like, how much do you charge? I'm like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to market that. I mean, I eventually do, and I'll admit it. I definitely underball it from what I probably should be charging, but at least I'm making money and I'm having fun doing it. But I'm the same way. I do not know how to market that stuff. Like, if I had someone that could be like, okay, handle the business end and do all that, and just let me do this, because I got this, don't worry about it, then it would be a lot easier. But I think it's a good lesson to learn, especially if you're making art, how to market. And it's for sure. I feel like that's not talked about enough, how hard that is.
I'm good at promoting others. I'm just not good at promoting myself.
Right.
And that's the thing. I'm like, all this stuff I do to promote other people, I need to apply to doing it for myself.
Right.
I really do. Sorry. Like I said, I feel bad. I kind of sort of derailed this whole train. So
no, this is
an agenda, man, and I wanted to do it.
Yeah, no, this is interesting. I feel like this will help a lot of people. Struggling artists that, just to hear another person's story and how they got there and what they went through, I think that's helpful. So
Yeah.
whatever you want to say, it's all you. So I think what you said is true, and people should at least take note of that, about all that, and especially like learning how to market yourself, because if you have a talent and you have like a gift, a talent of doing something that people need doing, people want this done, then you should do it. And then some people feel like, oh no, I'm like, when I do the photo thing, I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm charging way too much, when I'm really not, because I look at other photographers that have just as much experience as I have, maybe less. They're charging thousands and people are booking them all the time, and I'm charging like hundreds.
Yeah, and I'm just like, how are these people coming up with this price?
I know, and I'm like, how are they getting these gigs? Because I'm like, there's no way. If I go to someone, I'm like, okay, well, if I'm gonna do a wedding shoot, it's gonna be like $2,000, because I gotta go through all this editing and all this time and equipment and stuff. And then I'm like, oh, I'll do it for like $400 or something, and it's like a all day shoot. And I see these people, I'm like, how do they do that? I don't have that confidence to. I don't think it's. I don't know if I'm necessarily. Well, maybe I am, and I'm not afraid to admit that. I'm afraid, I guess, of getting like denied and turned down.
Yeah, same
in
here.
a way, which there really shouldn't be anything to be afraid of with that. And I don't sit there and I'm not like, oh God, I'm like really afraid to get turned down. I don't even think about it. Like, it's just in the back of my head, and I just realized that that's just like, I don't know how to deal with getting turned down for that. And it's just, it's something that everyone, I guess, that does stuff struggles with, and it's just something that you learn. I don't think you can be taught that. I think that you have to learn that on your own. I could be wrong. Maybe you can be taught it, but I haven't found that out. But I think that you have to learn that on your own.
There's so many questions I wanted to answer. I'm reading them now. I'm like, oh man, that's a good one. Oh man, I didn't answer that one.
We're gonna keep going. We'll get to some. I see that you answered about how you got involved with AQW in that process. We answered it at the beginning.
Yeah, they definitely I want to say sook, but I don't think that's a word. They definitely came knocking on my door. They just basically hit me up in like a DM or something.
Gotcha.
And it's always usually Alina that does the main thing. She's like, hey, I like your stuff. What would you think about getting an interview and getting a trial run? And I was like, all right. I mean, I guess I was not sure because I didn't know where it would go,
Right.
And once I got the gig, though, I mean, because it was literally Alina and Mehmet that were on in a voice chat, and when I got the gig, I literally was just crying because
I can imagine.
I couldn't believe that somebody saw enough potential in me to want to utilize my work in that way, and that all the public would have access to it. It all just came, and I wasn't sad. It was like hard to explain.
You were like an excited, happy, like just like I did it, like yes, and you're like crying. You're like you're hyped,
dude,
and you should be.
It was so amazing.
Yeah.
Very overwhelming because I'm an emotional being, but
gotcha.
Like I just. And my wife, like, she was super happy for me, and
of course,
I just couldn't believe it. And so, yeah, man. And I think it was right then and right there. I put, like, oh my god, what am I gonna do? Oh my god, how's this? Oh no, I'm gonna fail. I don't know. I had a lot of fun. I mean, if I had to pick, it's hard to pick a favorite set that I've made because I've made a few. I mean, I was only there for a year,
right?
But man, in that year felt like 7. I did a lot of stuff,
right?
So, I think the one that I had the most fun with, where I got to really interact with people with, was Stone Crusher.
That is so cool.
Because that one was interesting because originally I was gonna make some kind of Earth monk or something, kind of set elemental monk thing, and while I was submitting art for it, and a guy who was designing the skills and everything for Stone Crusher, he hit me up and he's like, hey, can I use this for a class? And he's like, and I was like, I don't know. Let me talk to them and see what they say. And then they were like, yeah, this would make a great class in terms of the art and everything. Because I went nuts with Stone Crusher. I made an elemental to go with him, a big old stone elemental. And I wanted to animate it and go nuts with the stun elemental, but they were just saying, nope, it's got to be static, no animation. So I was like, okay.
Like, oh no.
Because I don't know, I was so eager to learn and just get in there and learn things that I wasn't ready for yet. But I just didn't care. I was just like, I want to animate. I want to do this. I want to do that. How else am I going to learn? So
Right.
it was a little frustrating because I was so limited. But on my own time, I would go in and try and, download other people's work and sort of break it apart to see how they did it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I would learn. I teach myself how to animate through deconstructing other people's stuff and seeing how they did it.
Right, and like reverse engineering it.
Exactly, reverse engineering. So like sometimes things would be recycled, like if maybe a lightning effect or something, or
Mm-hmm.
because I'm just like, I don't know how to animate this stuff, so I'll just I didn't have I was short on time most of the time when I'd make stuff. Another set I really had a lot of interaction with people with was like the Brazilian crowd when because my favorite thing is Carnival.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I love that event so much, but I do. But because I mean, when you study the real Carnival,
Right.
the costumes are just amazing, and it's all about the celebration of women. So,
Mm-hmm.
so I was like, I'm gonna go nuts on this, and I just had a lot of interaction with the Brazilian crowd, and they loved me because I took their feedback very sincerely, and I studied Carnival and what it was about and all that, and did a lot of research. So when I created my set for it, I mean, now nobody really cares about it because AQW is one of those things. This is the only bad thing about weekly releases that I know,
Mm-hmm.
is that art. You bust your butt on some art, right? You
Right.
submit it, and people are like, "Oh man, this is the best thing in the world," and then next week, "Oh man, this is the best thing in the world." And then your art's completely forgotten about.
Yeah, I was gonna say everything just kind of goes down the conveyor belt really fast. So it's like it'll be a hype like week, like, oh, look at this new, oh, I love this new armor, this is so cool, and then something else happens, and then in 2 weeks everyone's like, wait, what armor did I like before? It's just like everyone forgets about it.
Yeah, so it's just constant, and that's what kind of started burning me out a little bit, was because like I would pour all my heart and soul into my art, and just to kind of see what people would think, and I don't know. Sometimes I'd create stuff just to cause a reaction. So like, for instance, I created the Wild Style set. It's a kind of a raver sort of party set,
Right.
and it was released on New Year's one year.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was New Year's 2015.
Okay.
And it came with like a megaphone or two different megaphones, a tail, male, female, and then because like the male version was I inspired like the face off of David Bowie because he's one of my favorite dudes.
Oh, I love David
love
Bowie.
his music.
Yeah.
And his whole outlook on things. I love David Bowie. It's hard, I can't get into him enough. And Gary Newman, all these different musicians I grew up with.
Right.
Listening to and stuff, and I just wanted to pour every ounce of love into that armor of things that were inspiring to me in terms of music and stuff and style. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I love, not a raver, but I love the style of clothing. I love the bright colors. I love the baggy stuff, the chains dangling everywhere.
Yeah, it's fun.
All that stuff.
Yeah.
So I just went nuts on that set. I mean, and then I'm also into huge like cyberpunk,
Same.
mecha and all that good stuff. So I designed a set for Valentine's Day that was very unorthodox. It was basically a mech called the Battle Cupid,
Mm-hmm.
and I just every set I would make, I would try to do something that's never been done. Because I got tired of the cookie cutter armors. Like, okay, let's make Legion, let's make Nation, let's make this, let's make that. I'm like, no, that's not for me. I'm not going down those rabbit holes. I don't want to make things that have been done to death 1,000 times.
Right.
I want to do stuff that's very unorthodox, outside the box, and my art and my style started speaking for itself. And then people started gravitating to that because they're like, well, if he can make that, then why can't I? So, like, I was in I call it a training class, but a couple other artists were brought on board, and the stuff I was designing had inspired them to also think far outside the box and do things that are out of the ordinary.
That's
And
awesome.
all of it was received. All of it was received pretty well. And then I noticed some of the other artists, some of the core artists, like back at the time, like I don't remember if it's called Lakin or Lakin, but
Yeah.
he was an artist I really respected, and he made his set because like when I did Stonecrusher thing and I made that big rock golem dude, he ended up making like a samurai type set with this huge giant cape which was like this big like samurai warrior spirit guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I just was noticing like anything I made, it was sort of inspiring others to sort of think outside the box and do the same. So like Goddess, I don't know if you ever got to talk to her or interact with her, but she was also another volunteer type of artist.
Right.
And she was inspired by my coloring and shading style, so she kind of did, her own thing, branched off of that and made all her. She would make all her stuff. I mean, no matter what it was all color custom. And I was like, man, how do you do the color custom stuff? For years, I was always asking, how do you guys do the color custom stuff? How? And nobody would, try to. It was almost like some kind of secret.
It was like a secret underground lab secret, literally.
Yeah, and so I mean, it wasn't years later until after I had left, that I finally figured out how to do color customizable armors. Because man, yeah.
Now that you know,
it's sad now,
right? Now that you know how to do like the color custom armors, when you figured it out, or someone taught you, or however you learned it, did you sit there and you were like, "Wow, that was really easy"? Actually, like, how did I not figure that out? Like
I had the epiphany, and I'm just like, how did I not put two and two together?
It's that simple.
Yeah,
it's kind of like when the saying like things like hiding in plain sight, like it's that easy.
Yeah. And so like I guess I mean, like I see a lot of people even now, I'll just give basic inspiration to them. Just like don't like take things slow. It's okay to grow. Don't be in such a huge rush because you're not gonna you're gonna submit stuff thinking, oh, it looks so good, but they're gonna be like, your stuff may get torn down and you may not like it. So just take your time and learn as you go. Absorb every bit of knowledge and feedback you can. When it comes to art feedback, to me, there is no such thing as bad feedback. And if there's feedback you don't like, then just don't take it personal.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, if people are giving you horrible feedback, 9 times out of 10, especially on Twitter, it's usually jealousy. Honestly.
Yeah.
Like, man, they're doing this. I don't know how. I wish I could. And it's just like don't let that get you down. If people want to make something, make it.
Yeah.
But make it yours. Make it yours. Don't try and be Dage. Don't try and be Nolgath. Don't try to be other artists. Be you.
Yeah, exactly.
Your stuff is your stuff.
Yeah.
Because too many artists are always following. They want to be the next Dage, or they want to be the next J6, or they want to be the next Nolgath. I'm just like, dude. Just be you.
Yeah, you should want to. You should want to be. Oh, I want to be the next me. And they should always strive to be like. When other artists look at this, they're like, "Oh, I want to be the next so and so." It should be like you should. It should feel gratifying that people are like, "Oh, I want to be the next Tana Pyre," rather than be like, "I gotta be the next Dage. I gotta be the." You gotta discover yourself.
And here's a little secret. Like a lot of these players, these newer guys, newer girls, newer people, artists, they don't understand that like a lot of this older nation art, even Milton himself doesn't like it.
Right.
It's so simple. Like he's evolved so much in terms of what he's done, what he's doing now as art. When he looks back at his old stuff, he hates it, dude. He hates it.
Oh, I can imagine.
Like, so when all the artists are like, I want to do this because this is awesome, I'm just like, would it help you to know that even Milton himself, who created that stuff, hates it? He just, it's not good.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not. And all these other artists are limiting themselves by wanting to go that route. And it's just like, there's better ways to go about it. Be you. Yeah.
I understand exactly what you're saying. They're stuck in the mindset that like, oh, it's better because it's old school. That's when it was good. But when a lot of the new stuff is is good or just as good or even better. So,
Yeah.
you shouldn't just be, it's like a person that it loves like only oldies music just because it's old. They're like, those Led Zeppelin back then because they're old. Like, yeah, they're good, but there's also good other musicians.
The artists that inspired me and I wanted to kind of flock to the most in terms of art direction for me. So Mimit,
Mm-hmm.
I liked a lot because her art was very the direction it's supposed to be in terms of simplicity, in terms of shading, in terms of all that stuff. She used a lot of tricks to make her art look very complicated when it's not.
Mm-hmm.
J6, I love his art because most of the time people think he's a background artist, but no, that dude, he can draw some sets.
Right.
He's amazing, very talented. Even his earlier stuff, and even he'll tell you, man, his earlier stuff was not the best, but he's evolved so much. And like another artist that I deeply respect in terms of their style is Tyronius.
Yeah.
When I first saw his stuff, I mean, his stuff had a lot of culture in it.
Right.
Like in terms of its designs, how it was. I mean, a lot of his stuff, I think he got flack for it because it was so complex, and it was all color customizable, so it did cause a lot of lag. But
mm-hmm.
for me, that wasn't even what it was about. It was about the intricacies and how he poured a lot of his own self into it. Like his, I would always say, dude, your stuff, I don't know, like, where are you from? And so he, and I'm like, so I can tell you're pouring a lot of your own culture into this. And because it just, a lot of his old designs are very wild, dude, real wild and intricate in terms of like the patterns he uses and
right.
his shading techniques, just way out there. But he's gotten a lot more grounded now. His stuff's a little more AQW centric in terms of simplicity. So
mm-hmm.
I like that, he artists like him will take the time to sit there and reevaluate, what they're doing and sort of, evolve accordingly so that, their stuff is up to par. So and of course, I was also very inspired by Diaz, and I didn't know it at the time, but I was following him a long time before I even knew who Diaz was.
Wow, really?
Yeah, Ozzy is his name. Dude makes so much amazing illustrations. His stuff. He's got a lot of amazing stuff. He can draw mecha. He can draw Street Fighter style. He can draw so many different styles. And
yeah.
But it's ultimately it's his own style. He just has his own look and feel to it. But like yeah, those artists there. I mean, there's a lot of really talented artists even now that are there. Like I used to give I think you pronounce it Lay.
Yeah, that's how I pronounce it too. We could be wrong, but that's how I pronounce it.
Yeah, I used to give him him a little flack because I'm like, dude, your art it's mostly black.
Mm.
But I think he does it as a means to sort of hide. Maybe he's hiding certain things or making it so his art looks more complicated than it's not.
Mm-hmm.
But like in his earlier days, it was mostly black art, and I was just like, it looks. I guess I felt I wanted to see more color. I wanted to see more variety, more shading. I wanted to see where it went. So like, my opinion on him was pretty harsh, and it was because I believed in his work so much. Like I loved it. It's very amazing stuff.
It is.
I wanted it to. I guess I wanted him to push himself so hard that he's doing stuff that's out of his, comfort zone. And I felt his comfort zone was black art. So I wanted him to kind of get away from that and do stuff that's more in color because I wanted, to see how far he pushed himself. And he has improved drastically, like a lot over the years. So
right.
In case he hears this, I just want him to know his art's amazing and I like it.
Hey,
Rita is
me too.
another artist that I like a lot too.
Right.
I can't remember what his name is now, but yeah, there's a certain artist I really like. So.
Right. I also, now that we're talking about artists, of course, like ever since I joined AQW, I was always like, whoa, this Dage guy, really good. He created this
He didn't start that way.
this whole thing. I'm sure, but like I saw like when I saw what the Legion was and like all this, I'm like, dude, this is so cool. Like this is exactly like what I like this style, like skulls and like just these really cool looking creatures and armors. And then like I would see some of his other work that he would do, like post on Twitter, like paintings or like sketches, and I'm like, dude, this is
sketches,
so
paintings,
good.
clay.
I could, yeah. I was like,
3D
what?
stuff. He does everything.
Such a talented person, and
Yeah.
I was never like a Nation guy, more Legion, but I can't deny that like a lot of the Nation stuff looks so good and so cool.
Yeah.
Like right now, even though I'm a Legion guy, I mean, to me it doesn't really matter. It's all fun and games, but I'm wearing Blood of Nulgath because I think it's like one of my favorite sets. I think it looks awesome.
Yeah.
And
I did like Z's. Z was the one that did the evolved versions of those.
Right.
And I think Z's version, like Z has a lot of talent as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I like how he would take some of the older sets and just kind of go through and tweak them so that they look new and fresh, and just, I don't know, he added reflections to things and things like that. When I found out Milton's technique and why he simplifies his art, it's because ultimately he's an animator, and an animation,
Gotcha.
The more complex something looks, the harder it is to see when it moves.
Yeah, okay. I understand that. Yeah.
So that's why AQW style is supposed to be more simplified, so that, because when when you're looking at your character, it's super tiny, right?
That's true.
So if you can't, the tinier your characters get, the more it looks like just a blob. Like all the detail, if there's so much detail, it's gonna look like a big old blob, and you're not gonna be able to make anything out unless you zoom in real close.
Yeah, and
half the time you don't see all that detail.
Yeah, and that makes sense because there's, there has been, but there isn't like any voice acting really. It's all like 3/4 view, like 2D, and like so your character always has to like be very emotive, like over emote to like to show what they're doing and like what their reaction is. So I get that, and it makes sense that the more detail that there is, it's harder to it kind of gets jumbled up. It makes sense. I never thought of that until you explained it, and it clicked. I get it.
Yeah, I learned a lot by interacting with Alina and them, because I had to pick their brain and ask, hey, how come the art looks like, blah, 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 and how come there's so many rules? And I mean, as an artist, I'm not going to lie, man. Artists have the hardest, grueling, most difficult task, and they are constrained by tons and tons and tons of rules.
Yeah.
It is so difficult. But man, if you do it and you love it, you're having fun, it's easy. I mean, for me, I felt lots of pressure, but other people are not me. So
right.
I wish, like I said, if I can go back and redo some things, I totally would, because I really do. I do miss doing art for the game.
Right. So speaking of like doing art for the game, like we have been, and I'm not sure if you might have answered this, but if not, then this question is pointless because you answered it, and if you didn't, then we'll hear what you have to say. But did you, like, the things that you learned from working there and doing art and all that, have you taken what you've learned and like tricks and different things and applied them to your work now?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would be ignorant if I said nope. No,
I didn't take any of that. Yeah.
I learned a lot of things, and again, a lot of it was self-taught. A lot of it was learned from, seeking help from other people that took, a few minutes out of their time to hit me up on Skype, and we'd share screens, and they'd show me how to do certain things. So, like, yeah, man, a lot of it was trial and error. Even now, it's still trial and error.
Right.
And yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, advice. I took a lot of advice, took heed to a lot of suggestions. Like a lot of past suggestions that I didn't care about. I would try them out, like, you know, a couple of months or something after, and I'm like, man, that's you know, that was helpful. I can't believe I didn't do it sooner, sort of thing. So
right.
I just, you know, when you're at the time when I was doing art for them, I was a very insecure guy, and I took a lot of things very personal. I didn't know really how to act on the internet, so like in terms of social media, I would you know, just like I said, take a lot of things personal. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I should have kept my social media stuff separate from my art thing, and I didn't.
Right.
And that really took a toll, because I would bring it into, you know, into my work.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of if I'm feeling a lot of well, let's just say like someone just ripped my shit to shreds, right? Well, then I would bring that to my next project, and then I would not be able to focus, so it wouldn't turn out right, or I'd have an art block, or I'd get discouraged, or
Gotcha.
something like that. So I just, when you're doing art like this, you have to have a thick skin,
Yeah.
and I didn't. So I made a lot of mistakes, honestly. So you just can't take things like this personal. You just got to do it, and
Yeah. And
it's
you learn
just part of the job, you know.
Yeah, and you learn from that, so that was
Yeah,
a good
sure.
outcome. It was a learning experience. So another thing that I've just always been curious about, and I'm sure that, you know, other people have too. Maybe they haven't, but I sure have been. Is so how, like, when you were at AE, how do they delegate tasks to you and different artists? Was there a point where they say, here's like what's happening, here's the release, we need these armors made, everyone pick something and work on it? Or did like the project runner come to you and they're like, okay, hey, we like sat you down like, hey Tana, we really think your art style would fit this armor, would you like to work on it? How did they do that?
So Alina had an itinerary, deadlines and things like that, and it was usually a Google document, and she would email it to us, and she would ask, you know, hey, what do you want to work on? This is how much long you had to do it, and she would let us pick and choose, you know. Mm-hmm. So like sometimes there were very specific things that she would hit us up and say, hey, I need this by such and such time, can you do it? And I was like, yeah, sure. And then I'd let her know, hey, I'm still working on this, not done yet, but like I will definitely be able to do that. I'm very anxious to get that done. She would be very, very flexible and allow us to kind of, like I said, pick and choose what projects we'd want to work on, and then, you know, depending on the time. So like for me, it would take me a long time to complete a project, so I would usually pick a project that was pretty far out,
mm-hmm.
and then I would know how long I had to work on it, and it was trial and error really for me. And then sometimes, like I said, when we're working on stuff, she would, you know, DM us and say, hey, I am struggling to find somebody to do this. Can you do this? And I'm like, okay, yeah, no problem. So,
right.
I mean, being an artist, you have to be very flexible because things can change at the drop of a dime in AE, man. Like,
mm-hmm.
You got to be flexible. I mean, you just got to be. So the most simplistic thing I ever made was there was this release where I guess chickens were involved in invading lore or something.
That sounds like
I just made a couple little chicken nuggets on a stick.
Yeah.
Chicken nuggets on a stick, bro. Like, or I did something as simple as make a hair for like a male character, like an NPC or something. Back in there was a time when you were able to get Gemini's armor. Mm-hmm. So the male version didn't have a helm, male hair. So I was like, all right, well, I'll do a male hair for that. Boom, it's done. And then they released it. But like, and that was usually me hitting up Alina. I was like, oh, hey, I noticed, I can make a quick hair for that. And then 5 seconds later, there's a hair. So it just depends, you know. You just got to be very flexible, and you got to be willing to literally do anything. So at the drop of a dime.
Right.
So But yeah, like I said, there's usually an itinerary, and it usually has releases planned sometimes 3 months in advance. So
That's good. That's good that they
yeah,
plan out that far and have everything kind of organized and noted.
yeah,
That's good.
and it'll usually be a Google document, and it'll have this artist is doing this artist is doing that, and then you just see where you fit in, and you say, okay, well, I'll take that, and that, and then you do it. So
Nice.
it's real simple, pretty chill.
That's
in
good.
that regard.
I don't know.
And she does keep everybody in the loop. So
Good. Yeah, I don't know what I was expecting. Like when I was thinking like, man, how do they do that? That's just one of those things where I'm like, wow, it's that simple, huh?
like the
it
weekly
makes
the
sense.
weekly releases, they seem grueling, and they are grueling. You got to make sure everything works perfectly, and there's always a lot of bugs. So
Right.
9 times out of 10, so behind the scenes stuff, they have their own little staff server. So you go on there, and I'm like, well, I don't mind testers testing my gear, but I designed it. I want to test it and make sure it works. So like, Reens would usually do the hardest work and make sure it's tested and ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would go in there and do my own little testing to make sure my stuff works on various maps, tests, and like when you're fighting and you're moving, and sometimes the arms get detached during the motion, or the leg gets detached when you're running.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I would always test my own stuff to make sure it works, and I always like to help like the testers, because sometimes there might only be one tester available or two. I mean, you would think there's a lot of people that test those releases, but there's honestly not. It's usually a pretty small little crew, and there could be tons of testers, but maybe only 2 log in at the time.
Yeah.
Back then, some people just wanted the position so they could have all the free gear, but it doesn't work that way now, from what I hear. Like, I used to have I had access to all the stuff. I mean, my benefit, I didn't get paid, but
Right.
but as a volunteer, we had access to the entire thing. So like, we could have, the only rule was this: you cannot have any contest rewards or other staff personals unless you ask for permission.
Right.
So like, you had access to everything: Legion tokens, gold, whatever you want. So
wow. Yeah. Okay.
You just don't have access to ACs. They have to preload those to you, and they knew that I used to test a lot. So, I mean, this might be a family secret or something. I don't care, but I would always get like 1 million ACs, dude. No joke. Because you're testing, you have to buy things and sell things and make sure the features work, and everything's working. So, I mean, yeah. So, and then
So it's basically like, obviously besides like Legion tokens and stuff, it's basically like item of donated awesomeness, like rules, like no personals or contest things, but like everything else you can
definitely
generally
exactly
choose from. That's cool. Well, yeah, I mean, you're doing a lot of work. You're helping their business out. So,
and also artists get all their own gear that they design for free. That's basically it. And then and the benefit that artists have also above the other staff is we can design as many personals for ourselves as we want, so long as it doesn't interfere with our actual work for the releases and stuff. So like on our downtime, if we design a personal for ourselves,
right,
we can use it. And
that's
then
cool.
At the end of the day, when all is said and done and we leave, that's kind of our reward for all of our hard work. We get to keep our personal.
Mm-hmm. That's super interesting to hear, like, that insight. So out of the AQW team that you know or that you worked with or still keep in touch with, and you already answered one of these. Actually, you pretty much answered this, but I want to retouch on it just in case there was more. But who in the AQW team do you think, in your opinion, like, is your favorite artist, writer, and animator, and why?
Maybe I'm being biased, but I would like to say that my favorite is Mehmet, because she doesn't do art like in terms of the flash art, she doesn't do that side anymore. But her writing, like, at first when she was writing her releases, she was still pretty green, but now, like, because she has a pretty decent background in writing outside the game because that's her career.
Yeah.
She does a lot of really great. I think her releases have improved drastically, like her writing abilities and everything. And she's the main writer in the game anyway. She's the lead writer, so it makes sense that her stuff is
as good as it is.
Well, yeah, and she does collab with like artists sometimes. Like he'll drag her into a room and talk to her, and they'll go out, hash out releases, and he'll just bounce ideas off her head or something. But like she is the main writer, and then like if I have to go for community artists, who's my favorites? Like as of now, currently, I really like Darkon's stuff, and I think it's because he's so unique. Like when I say thinking outside the box, that's the kind of artist I love to follow.
Right.
He really, really thinks outside the box. I mean, his stuff is way out there, and it kind of reminds me of when Blade was working for AQW, and he had a very dark style as well. And I always thought Blade was good because I thought his style would fit like Dragon Fable or AQ Classic because it's so dark and gritty and twisted. Like he makes a lot of really twisted stuff, and Darkon is pretty much that on steroids.
Right.
Dude is amazing. I mean, amazing. Like I can't even. And conceptually, I think before he even did art for AQW, he was doing art. I think he went to. He was doing. I think he was in art college or something, but his style is very dark and twisted and has a lot of. I don't know. He's definitely into the horror genre. And it's my favorite genre. So
I love
anything
it too.
he makes, it's just amazing to me. And he's already also proven that he doesn't only make the horror stuff. He can make, non-monsters and, non-scary stuff too. And, but I prefer his horror stuff. I mean, like, just please make a whole game with twisted horror.
I know it's so cool to like see that kind of dark and twisted, like demented creatures and art style in AQW. I'm like, wow, this is it's so cool to see this in this game.
And there's no question for me why he was brought aboard. I mean, obviously they like the same thing. He thinks outside the box. He's taken AQW in a whole different sort of direction,
right?
And he's inspired a ton of new artists, and I really like that. Lays, same thing.
Yeah.
I liked what he's brought to the table. He's also helped transform the game. I just, those two artists there for me. And I know there's others. I just can't think of them right now. The one that I've always been drawn to the most, and I've also befriended, I don't know if he's called Aaron X, but I usually just call him Eric's.
Okay. Yeah. I know exactly. I never know how to pronounce his name, but I try.
Sometimes I'll say Aaron X, sometimes I'll just say Eric's.
Yeah.
But like, I love that guy's stuff. He's such a cool, humble guy.
That's
I don't get to
awesome.
talk to him a lot, but when I do, he's usually so chill and so humble and so open to suggestions. Like he's so approachable. So, I was able to collab with him on something which players may not know, but there was something he did recently. I think it was probably a couple of years ago, maybe, where he did it was like sort of a skater set that was pretty colorful,
right?
But like skateboards. I helped design some skateboards.
Oh, that's cool.
I basically gave him the template, and I said, "Dude, if you like this, like, here's a template, man. You don't even have to do all that much work. Just do whatever you want with it. Have fun, man." So he made some cool skateboards, and then I guess Aline ended up using the skateboard and throwing some designs on that. And because I mean, basically, I just took the surfboard, because they're always doing the surfboards every summer.
Yeah.
And I like how they have that template set up. So I went nuts with it. I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna make a skateboard with this." And then I ended up using that same sort of template to make vehicles, so that you can put any design you want on the vehicle. and it'll
Oh,
look good.
nice. Yeah.
But again, I man, if I still was working on that game, I'm telling you, dude, I'd be bringing so much stuff to the table right now.
I would.
I've made so many things.
I would love to see it. I wanna go back a little bit real quick. On Darkon when we were talking about, oh, man, to me,
Yeah.
like, I just something about his art, man. It's such like the style that I like. Like, there's an artist that I followed for years since high school. Been following his work. I don't know if you know him, but maybe you do, and some other people might as well. His name's Alex Pardee, and he makes these like watercolor paintings and digital art sketches of like these crazy demented like monsters like that. And I saw that.
Yeah.
I'm like, when I first saw his art, I was like, oh, I love this art. This is awesome. And I've been following it for years. And then I see this in AQW and I'm like, whoa, no. I'm like, yes, I need to follow this person and keep an eye on everything that they
and
do.
I bet the craziest thing is I bet he's the most nicest guy in the world. But like, man, would you want to take a trip in his brain?
No.
Like, man, that would just terrifying.
I know.
I love it.
I'm like, oh man, I cannot rant and rave about Darkon enough.
Any artist that, like I said, pushes themselves and they think outside the box, like, I love rule breakers, honestly. Like, in terms of art, when you're breaking the barriers and breaking the rules, and just showing how far art can truly be pushed.
Oh, sure.
You're limited by your imagination, literally. That's the truth. So a lot of newer artists these days, it's strange, but it's almost like people aren't as creative as they used to be. And like a lot of these more newer and younger youth coming in, they're always like, well, what do I do? How do I do this? And I'm just like, man, honestly, the way I got into it is I just, I read comic books, watch anime. I'm inspired from so many different directions, and I just kind of, when I look at a piece of paper, I look at it as, many people see a white piece of paper, but I see an entire universe in motion, like, constantly all around me. So for me, it's real easy to just kind of, start with a line. Usually when I'm drawing people, I always start with the eyes, because the eyes are the most important part to me. They convey a message. So I start with the eyes and I draw around that. So everybody has their own thing. Yeah, man, Darkon.
Now it's time. I want to touch a little bit about Tana.
All right.
I want to know more about that. So, how did Tana come to be, like, in your head? Was this an OC that
my head canon?
Yeah, was this an OC that you have always had, like, in your mind, or has Tana always been kind of a part of your art in some way?
If it's in regards to the female thing, or just, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sure. Yeah, but like, I don't know. Like, how did
the name change? The name, like, I don't know. So when I first made the account that I use right now, it originally started off as Luna Soulfire.
Okay.
But the character was always there. It was just a different name.
Gotcha.
And I don't know. At first it was, the 4-letter slots are available. Let's see what 4-letter name I can create.
All right.
And I said, well, Luna Soulfire has always been about fire, first and foremost, so that's never changed. The theme has always been fire. So I basically did a lot of research and dug up names in different translations and different, all parts of the world, different meanings for fire, flames, whatever. And Tana, from what I understand, is it means it's like star princess or something like that.
Okay.
Something that has to do with fire, and stars made out of fire and gas. So, something like that. So I was like, all right, well, I definitely need her to have a last name. So I just went with Pyre naturally because, well, it also ties in with fire.
Yeah.
So, it was just a natural fit, and I've always been really good with coming up with names. So, and then I just decided right there on the fly to try and create some kind of canon for her so that if people ask questions, you know. But the truth is, man, I would make up stuff on the fly, and it just kept growing and growing and growing.
Yeah, and you're like, wow, you know what? That's actually pretty cool.
But like, yeah, and I don't know. I knew that I wanted her to be an elemental, and I wanted her to like I said, utilize fire.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that like it wasn't one of those things that was really widely used at the time. So I wanted to do something that, you know, I mean, like I said, but back then most people were just Legion Nation.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's not a lot of elemental people. So
right.
I was just like, all right, well, I'll create this fire character. And I didn't know a lot of people in the community at the time, so I didn't really make it, you know, a thing. I didn't want to be in the spotlight. I just sort of created a character, created a universe for her, made a little headcanon, as people do.
Right.
And then I really sort of, I don't know, started obsessively posting as much art, screenshots, and whatever of her as I could. That way, whenever people saw their timelines, all they saw was fire, reds, oranges, yellows. I wanted to catch their eye so that they would not forget who I was.
Gotcha.
I don't know if I'm going off on tangent. The original question is what's the story with Tana?
Yeah.
And then I wanted her to be a female character because honestly, ever since I was in high school and played D&D, I always gamed as a female character. I don't know why. It's just I'm more comfortable playing female characters for some reason, I think.
Yeah.
Even, you know, playing games on like Nintendo or whatever, and I'm talking original Nintendo, I always would pick the female characters. Right. So I thought they looked cooler. I thought, you know, having a female character that can kick a lot of ass would get a lot of respect.
Yeah, it's cool.
And so, like, when I create stories for them, I always try to make them as realistic and grounded as possible, and I always base them off of me. So
okay.
And me, I'm pretty like you know, elements in my life and stuff like that. So I don't know if that's important, but I always try to make my characters as relatable as humanly possible, because most people that play these games they're not coming from, you know, the best backgrounds. Some are damaged, you know, stuff like that, and so am I. So I want to make my character as relatable as possible.
Definitely.
Had I got to stick around in the game a little more, and make an impact, I had so many plans for my character, man. I mean, there were so many, and it was going to be pretty inspiring, really. But I'll get into it more if I need to. But
gotcha.
I just she's very special to me. So
that's good. See, like, it's always interesting to me when people can create these characters and like a lore for them and have a whole backstory and history, because I don't have a brain that necessarily works like that, I guess. Like I would have trouble sitting down and like, all right, well, I think it'd be cool to have like an OC and just have fun with that and give them like a backstory and lore and stuff like that. But I just always find it really cool and inspiring when I see people do that, because like I have trouble doing that. So I like to.
You never played any role playing games?
Not
no
really.
D&D?
No.
No Magic the Gathering? No anything?
I still Magic the Gathering, yeah, but I played a lot of Magic. But D&D, no, I've actually never played D&D, and I want to.
Oh, it's so fun.
I've heard
if you have a good DM though, you gotta have a good DM.
Gotcha. I've heard a lot of good things about D&D, and it sounds fun, and I definitely want to give it a try. I have fun playing Magic. I haven't played in a long time, but when I did play, once I got introduced to it, Magic was always fun. But I just think that's so interesting.
Helps with the creativity.
Yeah, creativity is like, it's such a thing. If you have it, you need to hold on to it with your dear life, because it can take you places. Because not a lot of people have it, you know. You actually touched on like 3 questions that I wanted to ask, which is awesome, because one of the questions I was going to ask was, I noticed that like with Tana, like there's a lot of fire, which I said hence the word pyre in her name. So I was going to ask, you know, like why, like what made you want to incorporate that into the name and into the artwork, but you pretty much summed that up for me, and that was a
Yeah.
really good answer you gave, and it was really interesting because I learned a lot.
Well, fire also represents like rage, and
Right.
I mean, fire could also represent life, but it's
Mhm.
usually rage and anger for me. And I just wanted to be able to create a character that pretty much encompassed, all of my struggles, all of the things I've gone through, and that, through it all, she still rose to the top like a phoenix.
Yeah.
You can't keep her down. She'll always come back, stronger
Right.
than before. So, and I really liked the elemental avatar Fiam.
Okay.
I think she's called Fiam. Yeah.
Right.
Fiam. And I wanted, Tana to have, a mother figure that wasn't there, but helped bring her into the world. And so I chose Fiam to be that, and then that's definitely part of the lore. And I made sure it could be at least in AQW it's canon. So I don't know. I just really love that character, and fire always has a special thing to me. Even in real life, like fire has always been something I have an affinity with. So
Right.
I don't know. Symbolically speaking, it's just
Right.
it represents, like I said, all my struggles, and that like no matter how much you knock me down, I'm gonna get up. And
Of course.
I just I don't know. Like I said, I chose the female aspect because in terms of how I see myself, how I view myself, I respect women because they're super strong. They have a unyielding strength and resolve when it comes to, say, protecting their children.
Mm-hmm.
And I always put them on the highest pedestals. And so, like anytime I game, I want to make sure it's as a female. I need them to get their dues. I want
Right.
to show people that females ain't weak and puny
Yeah.
and frail and damsel in distress shit. Like,
Yeah.
nah.
That's inspiring. When you were talking about the fire, it made me think that fire is beautiful. Like it has so many things in it that makes it beautiful. It's warm. The colors are warm and inviting, but at the same time, it's like it can also be destructive and hurtful.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
there's like it counterbalances itself.
Like, it's beautiful, but don't get close because
Exactly.
it
It hurts.
It'll bite you.
You learn that as a kid when you touch the stove. Like it,
Yeah. So
you'll
like,
learn.
The thing also that made me chose fire as my main thing is like one of my character, well, at least canon, is that she has the ability to create whatever shapes she wants with it. Like fire was one of the most moldable things, but it's also alive. It has a life of its own. So
Right.
like, I mean, my canon, I mean, Atana was able to make clothing and weapons, and also her one of her abilities was she could kind of reformat weaponry. So like, let's say she got a hold of the Blinding Axe of Destiny or whatever, right?
Okay.
Well, as I've already done with the game, I created my own. She has the ability to kind of take a weapon, basically purify it with her fire, and reshape it, reformat it into something of her own creation, and has her
Wow.
own power and energy into it. So it's sort of cosmic, I guess. It's just something that she learned to do,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to kind of do that. Like, again, that's kind of why I like, Darkon, because it seems like in his canon, he's able to do something sort of similar where, except he does it with people. He turns people into weapons.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
But like he reformats them and turns them into his part of his weapons and his armory. So like I like, just sort of that concept of being able to purify and renew and recreate something from nothing, or something that was pre-existing, and improve it, make it better. So I don't know. It's interesting. It's an interesting concept I've always liked.
That is interesting. I appreciate you for sharing that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You mentioned to me. I'll ask you. I can combine these questions actually.
Go ahead.
That you mentioned to me that, or while we were talking about comic book illustration, and stuff like that, and enjoying and being drawn to comic books. And I think that, again, like, I'm a layman when it comes to comic books. Like, I've read comic books, but I haven't really delved in and lended a lot of time to them, which the more I see them, I want to, and I will, because I think they're a very important part of American culture and stuff. And like, do you have any inspirations for like comic books? Like, if you're illustrating and
3,
like say,
well, 4 technically.
4, like say, like, I know who Frank Miller is. I had to Google, yeah, right. I had to Google a couple of them, but I found Joe Simon. I didn't know who that was, but I looked him up, and he was one
Most
that I
of
thought
my
was interesting.
most of my inspirations are older. I mean, they're still in work today, but like, they were just stuff I grew up with. So like, for me, originally it was Kirby.
Okay.
Jack Kirby. He's one of the most famous that a lot of people. I mean, he's one of the founders, man. The original founders of like Marvel. So
right.
And like, his entire art style is to this day is still emulated. I mean, if it wasn't for him, there would be no real definition of what a hero should look like and what a villain should look like. So, like, I mean, he's always been a huge inspiration for me, and I think in terms of my style and how I draw, you're probably going to see more Kirby than anything else. But McFarlane also was a big, inspiration when I saw him drawing in the '90s, and he was drawing for Marvel, and he created Venom and that whole, if it wasn't for him, Spider-Man wouldn't have the big eyes,
Oh,
he was real famous for making
I didn't
Spider-Man
know that.
have the big eyes.
Gotcha.
He gave Batman his more darker and grittier look.
Okay.
So if it wasn't for Todd, Batman would not be more grungy and serious and gritty.
Mhm.
So, like, and Frank Miller had something to do with that as well, obviously.
Right.
But like, yeah, it's basically, you got McFarlane, you got Kirby, you got Frank Miller, you got Jim Lee was another huge inspiration for me in the '90s. I mean, I did everything to emulate that guy because of the way he draws anatomy, the way he shades. I love his cross hatching techniques. There's so many things I can say about him. J. Scott Campbell, the guy that created Danger Girl, is another one.
Right.
Really love in terms of art and stuff. Let's see if I can name any more that I like. I mean, I could go for hours, dude. I love
Right. Yeah.
talking comic book art. So
That's awesome.
there's just so many. And then there's some there's some manga artists out there that I also really like. I can't remember his name offhand, and I'm probably gonna get murdered for this, but that's okay. The artist had created the look for like Ghost in the Shell and
Okay.
Akira. Those artists, like all of those, I got inspiration from everything. Like, in terms of my technical art, I would say, the artists for like Akira and stuff really inspired me. I love how he draws the mechanical corridors and everything with the pipes, all that, and
Yeah.
like a lot of '80s anime really inspired me for how I draw my mecha and my robots. And of course, I'm a huge Transformers fan as well. So if I had to
Gotcha.
name an artist offhand that I really love for IDW, it would be Alex Milne. He's
Gotcha.
my main guy. I like. So
It sounds like the people that you mentioned and how they're older like that. It sounds like they kind of paved the way for future artists and comic book illustrators, and I think that is definitely something to take inspiration from.
And I also inspire a lot of like real fine art kind of dudes inspire me as well, like Boris Vallejo, Frank Frazetta, Julie Bell, which is his Boris's wife, but like famous painters and stuff like that do a lot of fantasy art. And then like of course Geiger or Giger, I
Right.
think it's Geiger, but like H.R. Geiger, oh man, he's my favorite. Like, I mean, if it wasn't for him, the alien would not exist. Species would never have existed. And I love a lot of different like sci-fi and horror artists. So,
Well, I definitely have a lot of people that I need to look up and do research on because this all sounds really awesome.
yeah, when it comes to art, I could talk art all day. I love this stuff. Big nerd.
Well, we should have to. We should do that sometimes because that's interesting. I'm down to do that sometime.
Yeah.
So I got one more question that I'm going to wrap it up with. I'm going to wrap it up with one last AQW question, and I want your opinion on this. What do you think about the current state of AQW? What path do you think it's headed? And if, say, you were in charge, like you are the leader of AQW, what would you change? And what do you think could change? And I know that a lot of people I see on Twitter, but Twitter, it's hard with Twitter. Twitter's just a place full of negativity and drama.
Highly opinionated people.
Highly opinionated people. And they will...
Thanks Tumblr for that.
Yeah, they will draw and quarter you if you do not agree with them.
Oh, yes.
But you know, it could... You could think that the game is fine, and some people don't. There's a few things that I mentioned in, I think it was episode 1 or 2, but those are just minor things that I would think. But I think it'd be interesting.
I agree with you on those things, by the way.
Okay, I think it would be it'd be interesting to hear another person's point of view on that. So if you could maybe talk about that a little bit.
Okay, so I've been with AQW through every bit of up and down, even when it was at its worst. When like Artix came out and was very transparent and was talking about the state of AE and where it's at, and like they were doing really bad. Like he didn't know what was happening at the time, but like money wise, they were just not doing the best. He had to lay off tons and tons of people. Milton being one of them, Baleen being one of them. I mean, a lot of people. So, I even through the harshest of times, I thought, you know, I don't care how dead the game is. I'm still gonna keep playing it just because I believe in them. I want to keep giving them money, dude. Like, right. I know it's because of us. They're still alive. So I mean, when the dark times came, I still did my best to give like $200 here, $100 there. You know, right. Because like, I mean, the current state right now is, I think if it's still alive, it's because of AQ3D. I'm gonna be honest with you. Okay. Like, because AQ3D did a huge Kickstarter to help it get off the ground, and basically AQW and that Kickstarter are what the biggest reasons why AQ3D was able to stay alive. But I think because of the Kickstarter that Adam did, Artix. Yeah. For that Nintendo game or whatever he was doing, for the, I can't remember what it's called, the Dungeons and Doom Nights for the NES. Yeah, and that Kickstarter made, I guess, 4 times more, like 400% over what it was supposed to. So I think a lot of that money was what helped also reinvigorate AQW and well, AE in general, and just really, I don't know, pushed everybody to work even harder than before. But like the team that's on AQW right now is pretty small, like because pretty much everybody's on AQ3D right now. Yeah. But like, or they're scurrying to get this other AQ2D or whatever they're calling it now, get that off the ground. I think that the current state of AQW right now, it's basically just kind of doing what it can to stay alive because they know there's a big fan base for it still. There is, a lot of us OG people, a lot of us OG players are what's honestly keeping it alive. And I think because they know that, they're willing to sort of do what they can to help keep it alive for us. But in terms of story, I think it was originally supposed to end after the 13 Lords of Chaos. Like, right. That was it. They were hoping everybody was going to flock to AQ3D. And yeah. AQ3D is big, but not nearly, not even remotely close to being as big as what Epic Duel and AQW is. Those are the 2 games right now that are truly keeping the company afloat, aside from Hero Mart. So I think that what they should have done from the get-go, because like during beta, a lot of people were screaming, please put stats in the gear, you know, put elemental stats in the gear to do something to make AQW a little more challenging, to make it more better.
Yeah.
And I think at the time they just kind of just wanted to make something real quick and simple and something that, kids could play. What they don't understand is a lot of kids even want a challenge. Why do you think they play Pokemon and other games like that? Because they're stats.
It's true.
Stats matter. Stats matter, people.
They do.
They're, the pets should have more functionality to actually help the player. This is why I like Dragon Fable so much and AQ Classic so much, because the pets actually matter. They do something.
That's good.
Like I think there's still a lot of work to do, and I don't think they're gonna do it. I think that's why they're doing the AQ2D thing, because basically it's always been AQW 2.0. It's always been, this is the AQW that's going on Steam.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, they want to call it other things, but it's literally a simplified version of AQW. That's what they're making right now.
Right.
So my concern is you're going to have to start all over again. It's going to have all the same, art and things, but you're going to have to start all over again, and you're not going to be able to transfer, your AQW character to this new AQ platform, whatever you want to call it. It's a little unfortunate, but it's understandable. They want to go in a different direction, and that's fine. But
yeah, and
I'm still going to stick to AQW.
Right. Oh yeah, and that is a legitimate concern. Yeah, no matter how many like things that I'm like, grievances I have with it, or just my own opinions, like something about this game just keeps me sticking around, and
it's the art. I'm there for the art. Honestly,
yeah.
I'm there to support the artists.
I'll stick around and support it.
I know it's just a Club Penguin or a dress-up game, but I don't care. Like, I've been in it so long, and I've spent so much money on it.
Yeah.
It would be a shame to just burn it all and throw it away now.
Yeah.
I put too much effort and time into it. I feel like I'm kind of stuck with it until the end.
Yeah.
So whenever the end comes.
Right. Yeah, and you've contributed to it as well. So, like,
now I feel I'm obligated. Now I have to stay there.
Right, you're part of it.
And I just think, like, to keep it interesting, they really need. Maybe the coding is so complex. I don't know, but I think they should. I really think they should integrate stats or something. Because the fact that all the weapons are the same.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of attack power, you're literally just using art. It's not anything special, and they don't do damage. They're not like. I wish these stats could be customized in terms of like a sliding scale.
Yeah.
So like you can pay gold or whatever and pump into your stats. Just like most games.
Right.
So
you have perk points to level up your stats. And attributes.
Yeah, like you have a reason. There's a reason. And I want real consequences. Like, again, sometimes Dragon Fable, like when you make a decision to do this or that, the decision should affect the entire outcome of the entire game. So, like, from there on out.
Yeah.
And there's just no real consequences with AQW. If you do something wrong, or you don't save a town,
if you choose the wrong... Yeah, if you choose the wrong dialogue option, it's just, try again. I
love the game. I love it.
Me too.
I love it because of the nostalgia factor. I've stuck it out for this long through everything, and I like the direction the story is going right now, and I just want it to keep going in that direction. I'll hit up Mimit all the time, and I'll tell her, look, your writing is amazing. Keep going. Whatever you're doing, just keep doing it. Like. And I keep commenting on how if it's not for Ghost animating all the stuff that she's writing,
right?
I just don't think the game would be as good anymore. Like the characters are emoting a hell of a lot more than they ever did before. Yeah, and that's just because Ghost, man. It's all Ghost. He's making the game come alive, and it's reinvigorating my love for it again. Because I had lost all hope. I'll still post stuff every now and then, giving critiques and being a little hard on stuff, but it's like,
yeah,
it's because I love the game so much, I have a huge passion for it, and if I see the potential for something to go, I just want I guess I want things to happen in in a particular way. I think we all do, and
Yeah.
I think that's why a lot of us are so passionate and outspoken as we are.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess if I were to be in charge of it, I would integrate stats. I would go back and have the coders start working on stats, man. Like honestly, stats are very important.
They are.
And in terms of real threats and situations, I mean, there needs to be some real reasons for for people to get invested. Like wars are so boring in that game. They're
Right.
so boring. And there's no real incentive because all your war rewards, which should be our real reward, they should be free, not cost anything. You have to grind for them again. You have to grind for metals to fuse into other things.
Right.
It's just like, why? It's a war reward, bro. You unlocked it because you got this far. And if you fail the war and the villain wins, then there should be some serious consequences, like Babylon gets destroyed, or a hero dies, an NPC dies, or something. That something needs to matter, and there needs to be more heart put into that, more emphasis on, okay, if you guys fail, I mean it. If you guys fail, Babylon's going to be a crater in the ground. So you can't fail.
Yeah.
Were you around?
When?
Were you around back when Evil Corp was when Sharon Platinum took over all the games?
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me that was not fun.
It was fun. That was a good time.
You didn't think, oh shit, we better hurry up and
yeah.
do this, or all our games are in trouble.
You're like, what? No, it was fun. I felt that. I understand that.
So I legit was in peril. I was like, holy crap, we gotta work together here, man. So I went on every game and was like, doing everything I could to contribute, because I didn't want Platinum to win.
No, heck
and
no.
then you go to find out, oh, it's just a gimmick to get you to play other games. And I'm just like, man.
I know. I agree with you on the sense of consequence and loss and actual danger. Just even, and I agree with you on the stats, but like something as simple as like what most games do. Like what talk about a different game for a second. Like RuneScape, old school RuneScape. When you die, you lose your stuff. And then you have to either run back and get it, or it's gone and you have to try to get it again, and it's hard. Like, even the sense of you die, you're going to lose this, so, choose what you're going to bring wisely, and maybe, kind of, you have to be very strategic about it. Even the sense of just that would be a big improvement. And if they would adapt some of the stuff that Spider's doing with AQ Lite, he has made so many good improvements that I think AE should adapt into the actual game, because as far as I know,
for sure,
he's doing it for just the passion of the game, and he's doing a really good job. Either they should like bring him on board to do that, or somehow adapt that in some way, because people are so passionate about wanting things like that to change, and they've made Google documents and all this stuff about things that
there's so much stuff and that's why I thought it would be important to kind of try and track down some of these former developers on the game, because there's been a lot of people that brought a lot of things to the plate, a lot of ideas and suggestions, and they all fell on deaf ears. It was just like, I mean, when you're having a meeting with Adam in person and you're bringing up ways to improve a game, and none of it's heard, none of it. It's just like, your soul is crushed. You have no will to want to continue working on the game anymore.
Right.
It's just because well, what's the point of even suggesting anything? Nothing's going to happen. And it's kind of unfortunate, but you just have to keep holding out hope that someday, somehow, some way. And I used to jokingly rebel. I'm just like, look, if everybody stops spending money on these games for just 1 month, it will force them to go back and reevaluate things. I'm telling you, if people just came together and didn't spend a dime on the game for one single month, it would force some change, I think. So
yeah, there's some truth to that. Yeah.
and that's with any game company, even these big, huge AAA game companies. Like, if people didn't spend money on them games for a month, it would force them to go back to the think tank and figure, okay, what else can we throw at the wall and see what sticks?
Yeah,
and that's the biggest problem is
exactly.
You don't need to throw things at the wall to see what sticks. You have a huge community of like over 1 million people, and we're all giving different ideas. Just take some ideas and run with it and see what happens. You know?
Exactly.
We're not trying to doom you guys. We're trying to do things to keep interest and draw in more people.
Yeah.
You know?
I agree.
So, and I'm not even mad about this. I just think it blows my mind.
Yeah.
The talent and those ideas that come out of so many people. And a lot of these are very experienced game people. You know, they've been doing this for a lot of years, and they're bringing simple ideas to help bring less stress on the servers, to do all these things. And it's just like, you don't want to listen to any of them. Why? Because they cost a couple of dollars? Is that the reason? I mean, what's going on?
Right.
Just do something to cause some real change to make your game so much better. And I know that the biggest thing right now is, well, we want to get all our games on mobile. Okay, well, so what? You get your games on mobile, then what? How are you going to improve them? How are you going to make them? How are you going to improve the functionality? Are you going to implement stats now? Are the weapons going to matter? Is the gear going to matter? Is there going to be some real turmoil? Like, are some NPCs going to actually die this time? Like, how are you going to improve? And then expand the universe as well. Like, that's the biggest thing that I find that is a little frustrating is like they're afraid to expand their universe to go outside of what's familiar. Like, let's meet some new characters from a different universe, or how about I make a different game entirely that's not tied to Rabina or Warlick or Sepulcher or whatever, just a whole different kind of game with a whole different universe. So like that would be great. Like, and that's fine. Like I just, like I said, I just an idea guy, and I think about a lot of things because I spend a lot of time by myself. So
right. Hey, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. But I know, I think what you said is true.
And again, this is coming from a guy who spent almost, let's see if I can try and count how much money I've spent in these games altogether. I've been playing them for 15 years. So,
a lot.
yeah, let's just say it's well over 300,000 at least total combined, maybe. I don't know. I lost track, dude. I stopped caring. I just, if I like something, I buy it. So,
yeah, it's easy. I agree with you. I think hopefully they've been like Alina and the staff have been actively listening to this. So hopefully, it's
amazing how much little.
Yeah.
Apologies.
No, you're fine.
I just wanted to take notice of that as well. Like, it's amazing how something so new, it seems to be getting people on their toes now. So
yeah,
I like that. More exposure. I like that.
I know. I didn't expect that at all to happen. And that was just like
I'm quite happy.
Me too. I'm like, well, I created this thing and it got noticed, and I'm actively talking to AE people, and I guess I gotta do this, gotta run with this, and try my best to contribute what I can to the community in some way.
Yeah, so. And you're doing that, and people are taking notice, and before you know it, I mean, you're gonna have a giant following, man. It's just the way it is. People know talent when they see it, and you're a pretty talented dude, man. Like,
I appreciate that.
Like you said, this is your life. This is what you do.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Just keep doing it, and you'll keep getting more and more support.
That's awesome. I appreciate
and
that. And
hopefully through this, real change will finally happen.
Yeah, that'd be
great.
That would just make me happy, make me smile. So that's the good part. But yeah, I appreciate you lending me your time to talk to me. That was really really cool. It was really insightful. I learned a lot and got inspired, and I think it was a good exchange of dialogue that we had, and it was very productive and
hopefully
beneficial.
I probably veered off a few times,
which is fine.
I didn't mean to dominate the conversation. I hate doing that.
No, you didn't. That's how the best conversation and ideas are brought to the table. So,
I've only been doing. I only worked on the game for 1 year, so imagine talking to people who have
worked
all this time. So.
Oh, I know. There's so much
to
be heard, and of course, there's so much to be heard and to be talked about. So, is there before we head out, is there anything that you wanna plug, like your Twitter or anything, or anything you want? The floor is yours. Let the viewers know, and have at it.
I'm not really currently working on anything at the moment, but I guess if people want to look me up or whatever, I don't like promoting myself. I like to promote others. But I am on Twitter at. You can follow my Tonapire account if you want, but I'm also trying to get people to follow my actual art account, which is War.Arts. It's all one word. And then people can still find me at Tonapire, again, one word. In terms of doing like streams and stuff like that, no. I wish I did, but I don't.
Gotcha.
I don't really have the capability. I don't think. The time, the patience, the experience. I don't know how to stream. I don't know how to do all that stuff.
Right. So. I haven't delved into streaming before either, so I'm gonna have to try that one day.
I'm very old school, man. I'm not. I'm tech savvy, but I'm not like in terms of program savvy.
Right.
I'm tech savvy, not program savvy. Yeah.
Gotcha. Me too. Yeah. I'm kind of the same way. So, all right. Well, I enjoyed talking to you. We're gonna wrap up the show now. Thank you guys so much for listening to this. This was a longer episode, which I like. I'm happy that it was longer. I think it was good conversation. I think people will benefit from it and enjoy it. And you know what? I was super nervous at the beginning of this. Like I was telling you before we started recording, I was very nervous to do my first interview. I've never interviewed someone like this. But you know what? It turned out not to be that bad, and I learned a lot. And I think we had a really, really good dialogue. And I don't know. I think we grew.
I was nervous. I was all over the place.
I think we grew closer as friends. So I
oh yeah, for sure.
I really enjoyed that. So thank you again for lending me your time. If you guys want to follow me on Twitter, I have 2 Twitters, like I always say. My main Twitter is @Lanky AQW, and you can also follow the podcast AdventureCast @AC Live Podcast. And on my Twitter, there is a pinned tweet, which is a link to the AdventureCast Discord. It's also in the description of the YouTube video for those of you who are watching on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcast. Go over there to the YouTube, and you can find the link to the Discord there as well. And I forgot to mention that we did get approved on Apple Podcast. So when I recorded the last episode, that didn't happen. So this episode, we are on Apple Podcast as well. So. And you've been a really huge supporter of that. You've been really promoting, like you were saying, you're good at promoting other people. You've been doing a really good job, and I thank you for that.
Yeah, because I believe in you, man.
And
I want to see this thing succeed.
Thank you. And I want to have you on again. I want to have you as like a recurring guest.
Yeah, for sure, man. Like
I enjoy this.
Time. Like, yeah. And the best thing I can suggest, just because like I care so much about this, is like if you guys see a link on this show, don't be afraid to retweet it. Please retweet it, because the more you retweet it, the more people will notice it. And also, if you're a Spotify user, feel free to click the link, that leads to the Spotify channel, and follow it there, because the more people that follow it, the easier it'll be to find. Trust me.
Yes. The more people know about it, the more players will have access to it and be able to find it. And
sure.
That's what we want. We want the community to have their own radio show they can listen to. So
yeah,
all right.
Just keep following him, man. Lanky's a good dude.
Hey, thank you.
Awesome channel. So I believe in this. I know it's going to do something special. So it's already doing it.
It is. I appreciate the kind words. Alrighty, guys. That has been this episode of AdventureCast. I will see all of you next week for another episode, and have a good day. Peace.
Yeah.
Woo!